Hello everyone, today we're taking another look at Adamancipator. The reason being, since we recorded the zombie video, during the deck building for that video, I ended up crafting that grass look screener, right? So what we're going to be doing is a little bit of a round over some of the other big popular decks that will utilize this card to the fullest extent. And first on the list is Adamancipator, at the moment a tier 3 threat, and after playing it I can kind of see why. There are definitely holes in the strategy, and it could be my inexperience with the deck coming through. There's definitely a lot of really cool engines and ideas and everything going on with a lot of the top strategies. However, what I'm noticing more in the 60 card version than I ever had as a problem in the 40 card version is your Adamancipators missing, right? In the 40 card version, it doesn't happen at all, ever. But in this version of it, it seems to happen quite a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know. Maybe we're playing too many punks. Maybe that's the issue. Maybe the Ishizu cards aren't the way. Who knows? Maybe we just need to play more rocks. It could be as simple as that. But either way, this is the deck list we were playing. We're gonna show off some really good games and maybe some not so good games, just so you can get a full glimpse as to what the deck is doing and what's going on, as well as doing a full card for card deck breakdown at the end of the video. So if you want to get card for card, then stick around to the end. We'll be going through everything one by one. But do watch the gameplay, because your biggest opponent with this deck is the timer, right? And we have at least one timeout in the gameplay. Your biggest opponent is the timer, far and away. It is difficult, but you have like virtually endless gas, right? You will not stop summoning monsters. It's unreal. But anyway, I'm not going to ramble here at the beginning of the video. We're going to talk about it as we go through the gameplay and at the end. So if you're new to the channel, or maybe you've been around before but just haven't subscribed, I'd recommend doing so. You know, helps me out massively. You get to see notifications of new content coming out, deck breakdowns, streams, tournaments, fun decks, collabs, anything at all you can think of that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel related, we will normally do. So absolutely stick around for that. And if you've got any friends, feel free to recommend it as well if they're looking for a little bit of extra guidance. And with no further ado, let's get into game number 1. Alrighty, what I want to show off in this replay is just a little bit of that endless gas I mentioned. So we are going to try a Max C here. Of course it doesn't resolve, Max C never resolves. So we're playing against Phantom Knights, and they're going to be going uninterrupted. They got the boots and the torn scales in hand, going straight into Cherubini. They have the setup. They're going to send their Enchantress then banishing itself to grab them their Rider of Adamancipator straight from their deck to their hand, which is awesome. The Rider of Adamancipator is summoning out an adventure token while activating Fateful Adventure from the deck. Then Silent Boots is going to activate in the graveyard, grabbing Fog Blade from the deck. Now the Torn Scales is going to special summon itself back to the field, triggering off Fateful Adventure to grab the Dracoback the Rideable Dragon, which they can now discard to search their deck for the Wandering Griffin Rider, which gives them an Omni Negate. So that's automatically a bit of a pain to deal with here. They're going to bring the Griffin Rider out, of course they are. Now they're going to link off into the Phantom Knights of Rusty, whatever that last word is. They're going to send Ancient Cloak to the graveyard to set another Fog Blade straight to the field, and then they set the Fog Blade that they just added. So they get 3 negates and a pretty decent board to deal with. Let's break it down. We're going to go Ogre Dance here. Ogre Dance is going to add Ziaman here. We were just testing to see if they had like an Ash or something. We summoned Doki Doki, but we hold off on using its effect because if our opponent activated the Griffin Rider there, we were dead in the water. So what we do first is we special summon out our Adamancipators, and now we're just going to start testing our luck. We're going to go Seeker here, seeing if we can hit a monster off the top of the deck. Luckily for us, we do hit a couple, summoning out the Supplier to the field. Supplier grabbing us the Guardian is awesome. Now we can use Doki Doki safely, ditching the Guardian to summon the Analyzer, which is great. Now we're going to go into Drag Out. We're doing Drag Out to negate at least one of those Fog Blades should have come up, which is perfect. And now we're going to use our Researcher, hitting another Doki Doki, which isn't a fantastic hit, but it'll do. I'll take a monster over no monster. We do hit another rock monster here. It is a level 2 here, the Cart. Cart is a pretty decent extender here. We're going to go into Raptide. We're going to go and fish out of our deck one last time. We hit the Roxy's with the Supplier, which is pretty decent. We're going to go Roxy's here. Now we're going to Synchro Summon into Baron de Fleur. Now we're going to go Drag Out's effect. They're going to activate the Griffin Rider. They're going to try and negate and destroy we're going to negate and destroy them. They're going to activate the Fog Blade to negate us, and then we're going to activate Dragite to negate them, and then they're going to activate the Fog Blade to negate us. So that's now that's a chain, right? So Fog Blade negates Dragite, so Dragite no longer negates the Fog Blade, so the Fog Blade negates the Baron de Fleur, so Baron de Fleur no longer negates Griffin Rider, so Griffin Rider negates Dragite, and bang, our field is destroyed. But we're only getting started. We're just going to go into the Meow, we're going to activate Roxy's going to banish the Yamming, get Drawing, we're going to get the Dropsies from the deck, we activate Foolish Burial, we send Block Dragon, we send Kelbeck, we send Agido, we send all of these crazy cards to the grave, and we're just starting. We're playing through all of that, and we still have so much gas. It is unreal. This deck can play for days. You're just going to continue using cards. They cannot stop you. You will not be stopped. So there you go. There's game number 1. Let's get into game number 2. Already playing 60 cards versus 60 cards here. This is going to be what I was talking about briefly at the beginning. We're going to go for the Prank Kids line. The Prank Kids line is pretty solid here, especially if you've got the Supplier in hand. We're going to use Supplier, summon it out to the field, as well as summoning out the Dropsies, banishing the Chaos from hand, it's whatever. Summoning out Dropsies. We're going to grab Guardian as well to our hand, which is solid. Then we're going to link off again into the Doodle-Doo. Doodle-Doo now. It's going to allow our Dropsies to summon Roxy's out to the field. We're going to go Gallant Granite here. I always sort of... what we're going to do is we're going to detach one for the Block Dragon. Block Dragon's a very solid grab here, because we can banish 3 Earths to summon it, then we can link it off into IP Masquerena. The reason we would do that is to trigger its effect to search our deck for a bunch of our Adamancipators. So why grab 1 Adamancipator off of your Gallant Granite when you can add 2? We're going to go Gigantes just to give us a rock monster on board so we can summon out the Researcher. Researcher then checking the top of the deck to see if we can hit a rock. Unfortunately, not. That happens all the time. It is super unfortunate. In this 60 card version, luckily for us though, the Seeker is not quite as unlucky. We do hit a rock monster among them there, which is okay. We're going to go Raptite for one last look through the deck. We're going to see if we can find anything of any use here. 3 cards, 4 cards, and 5. We hit a Kawakai Miru Guardian. Really solid. That at least gives us some gas. We decide, instead of doing the safe play, we decide, you know what, we're going to go even deeper. We're going to see if we can hit any really good cards off of our Chaos Ruler. We hit Ogre Dance. Ogre Dance is now going to discard itself, grabbing us the Z Almond from the deck, but we have already normal summoned, so unfortunately that's no good to us. We're going to bring out the Block Dragon before going into the Zombie Vampire, sending the top 4 cards of both players' deck to the graveyard, and we can see that our opponent is also playing a strategy very similar to ours, both of our Kelbecks activating to mill the top 10 cards of both players' decks. So we're just pitching everything to the grave here. Unfortunately, our opponent has the advantage. We end up sending a Gido, so that's an additional 5 cards. But they've got the Necrofaces in the graveyard, which they can now banish from the grave off of their Fairy Tail Snow. We are going to go Medora to basically return this Fairy Tail Snow back to the deck, so it doesn't actually summon. But the damage has been done. The damage was in the form of those Necrofaces that are banished. There's 1, there is 2, there is 3. 3 Necrofaces banishing 15 cards from the top of our deck, while the Thunder Dragon Roar that was banished is going to get searching as well. Luckily for us, again, playing a 60 card deck, we're not as susceptible to regular deck out strategies like this, so we are going to have a good handful of cards left. Now we're just going to go into an Apollousa here using 3 materials before ending our turn. So we have 3 negates on our Apollousa, and we have a Dragite negate, both of which are fairly solid. But again, we have given our opponent a lot of resources, and we don't have an awful lot of resources left in the deck ourselves. They are going to go Nemesis Keystone here, then Thunder Dragon Hawk. Again, I'm going to speed this up here because we get hit with Droplet, and that pretty much marks the end of it. Let's be real. They're playing Chaos Thunder Dragons at 60 cards, and this is the threat about playing the Kelbeck and the Agido. Because they're so good, a lot of people are abusing them in these strategies, so if you're going to be playing them to gain advantage, your opponent's going to be gaining that same advantage off of them that you are. So you really are running the risk of getting absolutely run over by decks like this. They're going to pitch all these cards to the grave. There's another Agido. Agido sending a bunch of cards. Again, we're on the verge of just losing it all here. They're going to go Chaos Ruler once more. I believe Chaos Ruler and the Punk is going to go into the Zombie Vampire. and that knocks us down to 0 cards left in our deck. Well, they shuffle 3 back because we need to have at least 4, but that gives us exactly 4. We have 0 cards left, so we scoop it up. Again, the combos that he was doing there, they're not so far removed from the combos that we did in our previous Thunder Dragon videos. That's why I'm not spending too long talking about them. His, of course, being a 60 card variant. I mean, we all know I'm coming back to grass Thunder Dragons. We know that that's what's going to happen, right? Let's not pretend we don't know. But anyway, there's a little sneak peek at that. Again, they decked us out. There's only so much you can do. Whenever both players' decks are dedicated to just sending cards or banishing cards from the deck, there's only so much you can do whenever you're starting to banish 25, 30, 35 cards out of the game. But either way, let's get into game 3. Alrighty, getting into game 3 here. We have a pretty okay hand. We have a decent number of extenders at least, and it looks like our opponent, luckily for us, has virtually nothing going on, right? They're going to go Drytrons, tributing off a few of their cards, setting up at least a defensive board, revealing the Chaos Max, but not doing an awful lot more. So Drytron bricks, you know, it happens. They're not exactly the most consistent deck in the world. We're going to go for Analyzer here. They are going to Herald of Orange Light negate us. That's fine. What, you think you're going to stop Adamancipators with 1 negate? Get real. Absolutely not. We're going to summon the Guardian, which will protect us from additional monster effects. Special Researcher, instant GG's, simple as that. Again, most opponents instantly surrender, right? See, the moment they see that they're not going to be able to max you or ash you or whatever it is, they're going to instantly surrender. So I needed to show off at least 1, right? So yeah, there you go. Let's get into game 4. Alright, now this is a bit of a tough one. I'm going to be perfectly honest here. So we're going to go with the standard sort of Prank Kids lineup. We're going to go Prank Kids Roxy's, banishing the Roxy's in hand to summon the Dropsies from the deck, linking off yet again in order to get our Dropsies to summon the Roxy's from the deck, okay? And then we got the Supplier on deck. Supplier then is going to summon itself out to the field as well, also grabbing a Guardian directly from the deck as well. So there's a decent amount of advantage we've generated there. That is totally fine. We're going to go Gallant Granite here. Gallant Granite detaching a card. This time, instead of getting the Block Dragon, we grabbed the Researcher. We already have the Seeker in hand, so we thought the Block Dragon might not have been the best investment here. We're going to reveal the top cards of the deck, and to no one's surprise, we don't hit anything. Now we're going to go Seekers. Seekers going to check the top 5 of the deck. There's a Revival Golem. There's Doki Doki. Both of which are very solid targets here. We're going to go for the Doki Doki here so we can drop the Guardian to summon out the Analyzer directly from the deck. Going into Raptite just because our field was full. We didn't have a lot of choice. We're now going to check the top 5 of our deck yet again. 4 and 5. We don't hit a summonable rock monster, so it sucks to be us. We're going to go into the Chaos Ruler then. If we're not going to be able to hit a rock, let's just hit anything else. 3, 4, and 5. Again, not a lot of usable cards, but we do hit the Foxy Tune. The Foxy Tune, of course, being amazing because we can trigger off the Kelbeck in our hand. Kelbeck then milling 5 cards off the top of both players' decks. Siaman grabbing us an Ogre Dance, which isn't the most useful card in the world at the minute. We are going to go into Baron de Fleur here. Baron de Fleur is at least an Omni Negate. We're going to resummon our Chaos Ruler out to the field. And I believe at this point we're going to go, yep, we're going to link 4 off into Appaloosa. 3,200 attack points, 4 monster negates, and Omni Negate, plus between Snow and Gigantes, we're going to be able to summon out an additional IP Masquerena, which is totally fine. We don't exactly have any real use for the Masquerena. Maybe not the greatest card. Maybe Dweller would have been nice there instead. But either way, they're going to go Dinomorphia, Phyresia. We're going to go Appaloosa. Appaloosa negating the Phyresia, sacrificing 800 of its own attack points. They're going to go Battle just to take out the Masquerena. We're going to use our Snow here, banishing 7 to stop them. We're going to flip them face down so we can keep the Masquerena on the field. On the off chance it might actually be useful, they're simply going to set 4 pass. Pretty standard Dinomorphia stuff as far as we can see. They're going to go Soul of the Supreme King or Dragon or whatever the hell it is. Summoning out the Z Arc. They attempt to use Book of Moon and chain to Z Arc's effect so that it is no longer negated. We are of course going to negate the Book of Moon, otherwise our entire field would simply be wiped out. We can't really allow that to happen, so absolutely not. Going into main phase here, main phase, our Baron de Fleur is going to attempt popping one of their cards. Dinomorphia Alert. We're going to attempt to popping it. He's going to flip it up and activate it though, summoning out the Diplos from the graveyard. Diplos then is going to Foolish Burial out the Brute directly from the deck, inflicting a little bit of damage. Nightmare Unicorn making its way out, discarding a card to spin a card back into the deck. The card we target is, of course, Trap Trick. We're not catching a break here in terms of hitting these cards. He is going to be setting Dynamorphia Frenzy directly to the field. Now, Frenzy is, of course, a huge problem because it prevents us really from making any offensive headway because of Rexterm. Rexterm is able to completely just shut down our board. We're going to go Fairy Tale Snow in the graveyard, and at this point our timer's running real low. We attempt to go into the Otherworld Goddess, getting rid of the Rexterm. However, it does struggle against the Arc, but it doesn't matter. We run out of time. Would we have been able to win that game if we had more time? I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not sure. That is a tall order. But we definitely at least would have had a chance. But again, it's not Adamancipators if you're not fighting the timer. Trust me, the timer's going to be a problem. If you're going to pick this deck up, pick it up in practice mode, pick it up in solo mode, but bring it in the casual first, where the timers are bigger or the time is unlimited. Learn the deck before bringing it in the ranked, otherwise you're just going to get yourself flustered and you're not going to have a fun time. Either way, let's get into the deck profile. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile then. So as you saw through the gameplay, the 60 card version, the actual attempted play style is extremely similar to the 40 card version. The big idea behind this version is that you want to be using things like your Grass, your Kelbeck, Agido, and your P.U.N.K engine to mill out additional cards from the deck so you can stack your graveyard filled with useful cards, which is usually very good. The problem I have with this version over the 40 card version is that it sort of takes away from the entirety of what the original Adamancipators were attempting to do, and did so consistently in the 40 card version, which is hitting cards from the top of your deck and special summoning them. I feel like that the value that that particular effect brings to the deck is significantly greater than the value that dumping all of these extra cards gets you to the graveyard, right? So I don't know if that's just me. I feel like that the 60 card version sort of takes away from that. So if you want to see a 40 card version that I think is going to be more consistent and potentially better, you can check my previous Adamancipator video, which would have been up not too long before this one. Either way, let's go through the list. We're going to talk about it. If you prefer to play 60, we'll talk about 60. First things first, we are playing 3 copies of Max C. Of course we are, but one of the best cards in the game. 3 copies of Doki Doki. Let you discard a rock monster to special summon a rock monster from your deck with the same original attribute and level. Now, in the pure version it didn't matter, but in this version it actually does, because we're playing a bunch of monsters that have different attributes. Well, not too many, but this one in particular is one that springs to mind. So this card does not really synergize with Doki Doki at all, unless you're... well, no, just not at all, honestly. But anything else, basically, you can drop for another monster of the same level from the deck. You've got Dropsies, which you need for your Prank Kids engine, and it's also a water monster. So the reason we use Dropsies and not anything else is because it's water, which means that it enables your drag out. But basically, you just need any Prank Kid here to work alongside your Roxies. 3 copies of Adamancipator, Seeker, and Researcher, both of them. Seeker can special summon itself to the field if you control an Adamancipator monster. Researcher will special summon itself to the field if you control a rock monster in general. Both of them have the same effect, where you can reveal the top 5 cards of the deck and choose any level 4 or lower non-tuner rock monster among them and special summon it straight to the field. They're both also level 2 tuners, which is also extremely important. So they special summon from deck, they're tuners, they special summon themselves. Really, really powerful cards, absolutely. We've got Cartahorn, the Hidden Gem of the Seafront. So this is a new card, actually. So you can discard this to get an additional normal summon of an earth or water monster during your main phase, which is kind of nice. It doesn't come up a ton, but it is definitely something worth bearing in mind, absolutely. If you control an earth or a water monster while it's in your graveyard, you can special summon it as well. So it's sort of like an extender from hand and an extender from grave, which definitely means that in a grass version where you're going to be pitching this to graveyard an awful lot, it definitely holds a lot of value. We got 3 copies of Ash Blossom, trying to minimize our exposure to Max C, of course. We got 2 copies of Xiamen. Xiamen, level 3 tuner, which is pretty big. Then you can pay 600 life points to add any P.U.N.K monster from your deck to your hand. You're going to be adding things like your Foxy Tune to enable your full P.U.N.K combo. Your P.U.N.K combo in and of itself is going to mill you 9 cards, as well as hopefully special summon a few big monsters to your field. So Xiamen definitely core, I would say. We got the level 4 Gigantes. Gigantes can special summon itself out to your field by banishing an earth monster in your graveyard. Really, really good extender. 2 copies of the P.U.N.K Guardian. Guardian's really good, and you can tribute it while it's face up to negate the activation of a monster effect and destroy that card, which is really solid. Plus, it's searchable in the deck through Supplier, which we'll get to. We're playing Revival Golem in this version. If this card is sent from the deck to the graveyard, you can special summon it from the grave. Really good if you mill it off of grass. Really good if you send it off of Foolish, anything like that. Revival Golem is solid. We got Snow. Of course, we're playing Snow. Can special summon itself from the graveyard by banishing 7 of our cards, and when it's summoned, you get to flip something face down. So really, really powerful card. Definitely, if you're playing any grass strategy, you have to be playing Snow. 3 copies of Prank Kid Roxy's. So the whole sort of Prank Kid combo thing, you want to be seeing Roxy's in hand. You link off into the Meow, and Roxy's will then draw you a card and grab you Dropsies. Dropsies in the Meow goes into Doodle Doo, and then the Dropsies will allow you to summon out a Roxy's. So you're basically summoning a Link 2 and still having a Roxy's on board while just using up 1 monster. Right, so it's pretty decent value. You don't need to play the Prank Kid engine. It does eat up a couple of spots in your extra deck, which I sort of maybe don't like the most. But they are additional rock targets as well, so it's up to you whether or not you want to play them. I would maybe consider cutting them. I don't think they're that good. But again, it's up to you. We got 2 copies of Adamancipator Analyzer. Unlike its 2 compatriots, this one is a level 4 tuner and special summons itself to the field, specifically when you control nothing and your opponent controls a monster, right? So it's a bit of a Cyber Dragon in that regard. But the rest of its effect is the same. You can check the top 5 cards of your deck for any level 4 or lower non-tuner rock monster and summon it straight to the field. Being a level 4 tuner affords you opportunities to go into things like Drag Out or Burrow on the Floor a little bit more consistently using this guy. P.U.N.K Miru Supplier. This guy will special summon itself from the hand if a face-up rock monster is sent from your field to the graveyard. And when special summon, will grab from your deck the P.U.N.K Miru Guardian. You can play other P.U.N.K Miru cards if you really want to. I think having maybe a Sandman on a wall would also be pretty nice. But that is entirely up to you. Guardian is definitely the main one because we are in a monster-centric meta at the moment. We've got the Rock Band Xenoguitar. If this card is sent to the graveyard, target a rock monster in the grave, add it to your hand, and then place a card from your hand back on top of your deck. So that synergizes pretty well with your Adamancipators because you can basically customize the card on top of your deck, and then these guys can look at it and summon it. So definitely a pretty good effect. It helps recycle your extra deck monsters as well. If it's ever banished, you can send a rock monster from deck to graveyard, which is also pretty solid. You will be banishing it from the graveyard off of something like your Block Dragon, so basically adds in another Foolish Burial, which is nice. Then we've got the Ishizu cards. We're playing 2 Keldo, 2 Medora, 2 Kelbeck, and 2 Agido. So Medora and Keldo both basically do the same thing. You can discard another Earth Fairy to special summon them, and when they're on the field or in the graveyard, you can banish them to return 3 cards in either graveyard back to the deck. So basically they both help you just bounce cards back to the deck, which is good for recycling useful cards that you need to use again, or getting rid of problematic cards in your opponent's graveyard. Then Agido and Kelbeck sort of do the same thing as well. When these guys are sent from the hand or the deck to the graveyard, both players will mill an additional 5 cards from the top of their deck. So these guys are here purely to send a bunch of cards from the deck to the graveyard. A lot of people are playing these at the minute, so for sure you're going to be seeing a lot of them, which means you're going to be milling a whole bunch of cards. So having a deck that takes advantage of that is usually pretty powerful. We get a single copy of Deer Note. Deer Note will be summoned from your either off of its own effect or from the deck off of Foxy Tune. You can reveal a P.U.N.K monster in your hand as well as this card, special summon one of them while sending the other one to the graveyard. It being a level 5 non-tuner synergizes with your Xiamen. Normally what you're going to be doing, like you saw in the gameplay, you'll be using Deer Note and Xiamen to go into your Chaos Ruler, and then your Deer Note is going to be able to special summon one of your other P.U.N.Ks from the graveyard, namely one of your level 8s. So you can then use Chaos Ruler and your level 8 to exceed summon into the Zombie Vampire. So that means Chaos Ruler is going to ditch you 5 cards, Zombie Vampire is going to ditch you 4 more cards, and it's all happening off of the Deer Note Xiamen. So that is pretty solid, because when this card's sent to the graveyard as well from the field, you resurrect another P.U.N.K. Then we've got Block Dragon, one of the most broken cards in this deck for sure. You can banish 3 Earth monsters from your hand or graveyard, special summon it from your hand or graveyard. So long as it's face up, it cannot. Your rock monsters can only be destroyed by battle. They cannot be destroyed by any other means. If it's sent from the field to the graveyard once per turn, you get to add 3 rock monsters from your deck to your hand, so long as their total levels equals 8, which typically means a 2, a 2, and a 4 of some description. So Block Dragon definitely searches your deck a bunch of cards, and while it searches once per turn, its summon is not. You can continually summon it to the field as long as you have stuff to banish, which makes it excellent for extending. Then we've got the Foxy Tune and the Ogre Dance, which are both pretty similar. Foxy Tune will discard itself as well as another card in your hand to special summon a punk monster directly from the deck, so long as it's not level 8. And the Ogre Dance will discard just itself to add a punk monster from the deck to the hand. So one's more costly but special summons, whereas one just searches. Not a lot of people are playing the Ogre Dance, and in this particular version of the deck, I can see why. I would maybe cut the Ogre Dance for some more rock monsters. I don't think it's as useful in this variant compared to others, because we're not really using light or dark as much. The focus of this deck is more on rock and earth. So I would maybe remove this for some additional rock monsters, but for now this is what we were playing. We've got Foolish Burial, of course, send any monster from the deck to the graveyard. I don't need to tell you how good that is in a deck like this. That Grass Looks Greener will send cards from the top of your deck to the graveyard until your deck says it matches your opponent's. Most of your opponents will be playing 40 cards. If you're playing 60, you're going to mill a whole bunch of cards out to the grave, which is pretty dope. We've got Smoke Grenade and Rod of Silence. Both of these here are part of a little combo with the Power Tool Braver Dragon. Basically, your Chaos is going to pop your Smoke Grenade, and you're going to get to look at your opponent's hand. So you're getting a massive amount of information, as well as being able to take a card out of their hand and send it to the graveyard. So that's pretty nice. Got 2 copies of Emergency Teleport, which basically just summons your Xiamen from the deck. We got Call by the Grave and Crossout Designator, just to stop those pesky Maxis and Ash Blossoms. So there you go. That is the main deck. An awful lot of cards, but that should be fine. It's actually not even really that budget heavy. A lot of these cards are not all that rare. The Ishizu engine is a little bit pricey. The Punk engine is a little bit pricey, but most of the cards are relatively affordable. Then getting into the extra deck, we have Naturia Beast, an Earth Tuner and an Earth Non-Tuner, and level 5 Synchro. If you're basically, when a spell card is activated, you'll send the top 2 cards of your deck to the graveyard to negate the activation and destroy the card, and that is not once per turn, not once per chain, not once per anything. That is so long as this card is face up. However, it needs to be face up for the effect to resolve, so if they destroy this thing mid-chain, then the rest of its negates during that chain evaporate. So basically, you're going to be summoning this off of any of your level 2 non-tuners, your Maxi or your Doki Doki specifically, as well as something like your Xiamen. I don't believe we have any level 3 non-tuners. We do not. Yeah, so basically it's going to be Xiamen plus either Doki Doki or Maxi. So you're not going to be summoning this thing every single game. But it is worth bearing in mind that you can summon it. And given how powerful it is, especially in a metagame with Runic being as powerful as it is, definitely a card worth running. Then you got Adamancipator, Ryzen, Raptite. So level 6 Synchro. During your main phase, you can look at the top 5 cards of your deck and special summon a rock monster among them. Not limited by level, not limited by tuner or not, like the other Adamancipators. So this guy basically just extends with a lot more freedom than the other ones. Then we've got Adamancipator, Ryzen, Dragite. Dragite is a little bit different. This is the boss monster of the Adamancipators. Basically, during your main phase, you can look at the top 5 cards of the deck, but instead of special summoning a monster among them, what you do is you count the number of rock monsters, and for every rock monster you excavate, you can return a card in your opponent's field back to their hand, which is an amazing card going second because it can completely shatter boards if your opponent can't negate it. And if that's not enough, it also has the ability where, as a quick effect, whenever your opponent activates a spell or a trap card, you can negate and destroy that spell or trap card. Which basically bakes an additional negate into it. So they're going to have to rely on some other effect to try and negate this. They try to imperm it, they hit it with a spell or a trap. You can negate the spell or trap and still resolve its effect. Then we got the Chaos Ruler here as part of the Punk engine. Basically on summon, it will mill 5 cards from the top of your deck, which is awesome. It can also resummon itself from the graveyard by banishing a light and a dark. Again, we're not playing a ton of light or dark in this deck, but we are playing the Foxy Tune and Ghost Ogre, which will satisfy that condition at the very least. So it's maybe not going to be as consistent in this deck as it is in other decks, but even just being able to mill 5 cards is normally enough, right? Plus it still enables you to go into the Zombie Vampire. Getting to our level 9 Synchro, the Power Tool Braver Dragon. So this is a card, I didn't really use this a lot during our testing. The way this works is you're going to grab equip spells from your deck or graveyard and equip them onto this card. Then basically he can detach a equip spell to negate the effect of a monster on the field or negate its effects. But it's, yeah, basically it's just a negate, essentially. But another little bit of synergy here is the equip spell specifically we're using of these two. So it's going to equip onto itself the Smoke Grenade and the Rod of Silence Chaos. Now, the Rod of Silence will negate any other spell effect that target the monster and it will destroy those spells. So the Smoke Grenade of the Thief is going to get negated and destroyed. Now, when this card is destroyed by a card effect while equipped, you look at your opponent's hand and you snipe a card. So that's pretty solid. So basically, Power Tool Braver Dragon gets to look at your opponent's hand, gets to snipe a card out of it, as well as acting as a main phase negate, which is pretty dope. Got Baron de Fleur, of course we do, in a deck where you can easily summon out level 10 generic synchro monsters. You definitely want to be playing Baron de Fleur. It's got a once while face up Omni negate and can pop a card once per turn, so that is dope. We've got the Sword Soul Supreme Sovereign Xing Ying, another really good generic level 10. It can protect itself from being destroyed by banishing a card, and when a card is banished, you get to banish another card on your opponent's field and when they're in their graveyard, so you get to snipe 2 cards out of your opponent's control. It also gains 100 attack and defense for every banished card, and your opponent's monsters lose 100 defense, attack and defense for every banished card. So if you're playing this turn 4, turn 5, turn 6, you're going to notice a massive differential in the amount of attack points that is on the field, and you'd be surprised how often that is just a deciding factor, right? Gallant Granite, basically a generic rank 4 Exceed, can search any rock monster from deck to hand, pretty dope. We're playing the Zombie Vampire as part of your P.U.N.K engine, so after you summon the Chaos Ruler, your Deer Node's going to resurrect a level 8. Your Chaos Ruler plus your level 8 is going to summon out your Zombie Vampire, which can detach a material to mill the top 4 cards of both players' decks to the graveyard, and any monster among those 8 cards, you get to summon it to your field. So it's an amazing extender, as well as getting even more resources into your graveyard. We've got the 2 Prank Kids cards purely here to link someone with the Prank Kids. Their effects are literally irrelevant. We've got IP Masquerena, link summon during your opponent's turn, and the monster that you summon cannot be destroyed by card effects. Pretty dope, especially considering Nightmare Unicorn is here, where on summon you can discard a card to spin a card in your opponent's field back into the deck. Pretty awesome. Lastly, we've got Apollousa. Apollousa is pretty useful in this deck because you can just spam out monsters like it's nobody's business. You saw Apollousa a lot in the gameplay, and for every monster that you use as material for its summon, it gains 800 attack, and it can remove 800 of its attack points to negate the activation of a monster effect once per chain. So that is pretty awesome. It's a good way to bake as many different monster negates into one place as you can. It does make it a little bit susceptible to being negated, but it is what it is. And finally, we've got the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. Again, you can't really predict what's going to be on the ladder out there, so having a bit of a kaiju like this in your extra deck is going to be very useful, especially considering how easy it is to summon in a strategy that can summon 746 different monsters every single turn. So in a deck where you can just spam the board filled with monsters, the Underworld Goddess becomes extremely useful at just removing a problematic card from your opponent's field. Plus its graveyard negate isn't even that bad either, right? Its effect on the field is pretty solid. And there you go, that is the deck. Again, I definitely prefer the 40 card version. I do think it's better as an Adamancipator deck, right? Let me clarify that much. I feel like you can get a lot done with this deck, and I feel like you're going to be playing a lot of different things and winning a lot of games. However, I just feel like if your goal was to play concise, straightforward Adamancipators, I think the 40 card version is going to be better. I would recommend checking my last video on that, but again, it would be a crime if I didn't test out the 60 card version on video after crafting that grass look screener, because I think this makes the zombie deck better. It might make the Thunder Dragons better. I've yet to test that. I'm going to be doing that one next. But Adamancipators, I would have to give it a pass. I really would. I know most people play it at 60. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm stupid. Maybe I'm playing it wrong. Who knows? If you saw any misplays, mistakes, or anything in the gameplay, let me know in the comments or throw it into the Discord. But either way, for now, my verdict on the matter is 40 cards is better. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. If you like what you were saying and you've got this far into the video and you've yet to subscribe, I'd advise you do so. It doesn't cost you anything, helps me out, every little bit matters, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.